Consequence Podcast Network.
Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith With. It's an audio interview series presented by WFPK, Independent Louisville, Consequence of Sound, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Wherever you're listening from today, please do hit that subscribe button. If you're at a place like iTunes or Podchaser, we'd love it if you gave us a rating and a review as well. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today I am talking with Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders. There is a lot happening. With her year, there is a lot happening in this interview. We're going to talk about her brand new art book that's coming out in September called Adding the Blue. It features 200 original pieces of art that Chrissie has painted. We're also going to talk about animal rights. She gives us a scoop on 2 new records coming out, Valve Bone Woe and Hate for Sale. And we'll head back to the 10th anniversary of the Pretenders record, Break Up the Concrete. We also talk about a couple of her friends, Richard Swift and Dan Auerbach. It's Kyle Meredith with Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders.
Hello.
We are so excited to have the Pretenders back in Louisville, the Louisville Palace. That's just next week on July 3rd.
It's a homecoming for me because I lived in Louisville when I was a baby.
I had no clue about that. How have I never heard about that?
I forgot myself because I was a baby. But my parents always referred to. My dad was in the Marines.
Well, I know there's some music stuff to talk about, but I feel like this year is also busy for you in the non-musical world. I wanted to ask some questions about some of the other stuff you have going on. First off, the book of art you have coming out in September called Adding the Blue. 200 original works. This is a really cool story because this is sort of a recent thing for you, right?
Well, it is and it isn't. I thought that would be what I'd be into since I was a kid because that's the one thing I could do naturally. I wasn't good at school. And then, of course, I grew up in the 60s, so I got totally waylaid by rock and roll. You know, once I started listening to the radio, that was game over for the painting. And then I went to Kent State University, but I was a dropout. I didn't really go to classes. I didn't study anything except pot and music. And then I left the States and I got into music and completely forgot about it. So just a few years ago, I thought, why am I still thinking about painting? I don't even know if I can paint. I've never done it. And I started, and once I started, I couldn't stop.
Wow. Like naturally coming back to you in a way.
Oh, well, it's just it's like what I liked when I was a kid. So, I mean, I had to figure it out. I didn't even know how to clean my brushes, so I wrecked a few brushes along the way. And I didn't intend to put them in a book. There's this brother and sister, Catherine and Nick Roylance, and their dad had started. He was a 60s guy in London, and he had this thing called Genesis Books, and I guess he did features on the rock stars of the day and stuff. Anyway, they approached me, and I gave them a few snapshots of a few of the paintings. To be honest, I wasn't really that interested in a book or anything. I was going off on tour. But when I got back, they presented me with this mock-up of the book, and it was so well thought out. And I said, well, you just do whatever you want. And that's what they've done now, and that's going to come out in the form of this book.
Yeah. Now, is it? Are we just looking at your paintings in this book, or is there any narrative that goes along with it?
There's a bit of, a little bit of narrative where they just, kind of talk you through a few of the. So, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and there's 2 examples out there for us to look at, and they're really good. I mean, they're really cool. You know, I don't have the proper lexicon, I think, to talk art completely, but...
Neither do I, man. I don't know anything about the art world. I'm not particularly interested in it. I mean, I love paintings like everyone else. I'm in Philadelphia. I might go to a museum today, but I forget to go to museums or galleries. It's not really my scene, but sometimes I enjoy it. To be perfectly honest, I look at a lot of this stuff and I just think you're just a phony. I don't get a lot of these installations and things. I think, sorry, but that's me. I'm in a rock band. So part of my job is to be real cynical about everything. But for me, any form of art, whether it's music or art, the purpose of it is to lift me, not to disturb me. I feel I'm already disturbed. So, but yeah, it doesn't even need to be thought-provoking. It's supposed to just light the room up a little bit. But that's just my opinion.
What I'll notice, though, the one thing that is sort of obvious on it, just judging by those 2 that's out there, is they're sort of completely different in style. And I guess that's what I was impressed by. Like, are you drawn to painting in one sort of way, or is it just, I don't know, where the brush takes you?
Yeah, I just get a blank canvas and start stabbing away at it. I don't have any preconceived. When I started painting, it sounds very elementary, and it is. I started painting flowers because they're beautiful, and it gave me something to focus on. And I tried not to do too many portraits because that's kind of my natural propensity is to do that. And I thought, well, that's going to be too easy. And also with photography, we don't need portraits. But I kept doing those because they're like a natural thing, and I find it's kind of a meditation for me. I just get into it, do it for 4 hours, and then leave the house and go have a sandwich or something. But yeah, it's just a hobby.
Well, I think there's something else, and I'll jump to the next subject here that's not a hobby, something you've been very proud to talk about throughout your career, and that's animal rights. I was reading through your, I think it was Facebook or something the other day, and you were talking about a project that had to do with cows.
Yeah, it's my cow protection thing. This is kind of what it's all leading up to and what I've been into for the last 40 years, really. And it's about, well, what it's about, it's ancient Vedic culture, which is where yoga, all these good practices that are pretty commonplace these days. Vegetarianism, this, where the cow is considered holy, it's definitely been lost in our current culture, but I think we can bring it back. It's about small farming, and the 4 principles of cow protection is, number 1, you never kill a cow. Number 2, calves must suckle from their mothers as long as they need to, 6 months or whatever. That's not how it works on an industrial farm, and that's what the vegans have a problem with. But I'm not talking about industrial farming. I'm talking about small farms. Number 3, the cows should be milked by hand. And number 4 is that the oxen have to be given meaningful work, i.e. plowing the fields. Now, the first benefit of this very small farming where nothing gets hurt and the cows are retired back into the herd and they don't have to be impregnated every year. It's a very natural. There's no artificial insemination. It's self-sustaining. It's not a profit-making thing, so you'll never find any industry jumping onto it like they have with the vegan thing because they can't produce it cheaply. This is a self-sustaining just for the family that has the cows in the local community. But the thing that's really important about it right now is that globally we're losing all our topsoil, and any environmentalist knows about this. Anyone knows about it because everyone goes on the internet. But the topsoil is what we need to plant crops, and if we don't have any, we're all going to starve. So the great thing about this small farming situation with cows is that unlike when you put 10,000 in a warehouse and they create methane gas, which is what everyone's talking about, if you have just 12 cows eating grass that we can't eat, they produce cow manure or dung, and that is what restores the topsoil. So if we start getting these small farms, we can correct the problem of the topsoil, and that's really what it's all about.
That's what caught my eye and ear when the conversation started was the environmental impacts of just eating meat at all. Beyond even what you're getting at with here, it's just the environmental impact. I think it blew my mind.
Well, I mean, meat eating is so far behind me now. That's been over 40 years, or that's way in my past.
Right.
I mean, we're so far ahead of that now. That's like smoking. Who
Right.
does it now?
Right.
It's I mean, and again, number 1 principle of cow protection is you never kill them.
Uh-huh.
So that's just doesn't feature into anything really in an intelligent argument of anything. So
it's
certainly not environmentally. It's the number 1 enemy on this planet at the moment of how we've devastated everything. The topsoil, the rainforest, it's all been chopped down for meat eaters. So stop it.
I mean, it's got to feel like such an uphill battle to get this conversation out there.
It's not only is it uphill, but I'm bored stupid of this subject because I've been going on about it for 40 years. But, then also it's my subject, and it's, if you had one of those game shows where you have a panel, what's your subject? That would be my subject. So, I keep getting drawn into it.
Well, I appreciate you enlightening me a little bit more. I do apologize then for, going over well-tread ground there. So
no problem. I mean, I'm writing a book on it, or I'm getting someone to help me to get some of the research on the history of cows throughout human history. And, I've actually been dropped by one of the animal rights groups that I was a patron of for 25, 30 years because they're all anti-milk now. But I would like to qualify that by saying they're anti-milk because of industrial farming. And when you buy commercial milk, you are buying it from the meat industry. But what I'm talking about is the opposite of that.
This might play a little bit into, I've heard you talking about new music a little bit as well. And the record you're working on, the title's called Hate for Sale?
Oh, no. Well, that's not going to happen yet. That's going to be next year. That's just the stuff that I'm writing with James Walber, my guitar player. Yes, that is the title. But the next album I have coming out is called Valve Bone Woe, and that's a sort of jazz dub thing. That'll be out in the beginning of next year.
Oh, cool. Are you working on someone with that one? That's
finished. That I've been working on that for years because the guy I'm working with, Marius de Vries, lives in L.A. He's English, but he lives over there. So we just haven't, I've done 2 albums and written a book in the amount of time since we started that, but it's finally it's finished. So that should be out at the beginning of next year.
I'm really interested to hear that. I mean, the way you describe that with the genres there, that seems like I know you're always, striving to try out new sounds.
Well, actually I'm not. I'm pretty lazy and I just keep doing the same thing. I think I'm on the spectrum, doom, 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 doom. I just do the same thing over and over, but a new song always has, it's, like the next day in your life, you're still alive, so keep expressing it. But this thing was started I did a song in a film called The Eye of the Beholder, which had Ashley Judd and Ewan McGregor in it, and this is about 15 years ago. And it was a version of a song called I Wish You Love. It's a French writer called Charles Trenet in English. Actually, I'm doing it in French for this album, but that took me 30 years to learn how to do. But it's with a big orchestra, and it's kind of electronic. If you could find that song, I Wish You Love, from The Eye of the Beholder, and I think it was on a Pretenders album too. But so it's more of that, it's kind of trippy jazz, but with this kind of, psychedelic trance music arrangements and a big orchestra. It's pretty far out.
No, if you don't mind, I'd still like to ask a little bit about the one that comes after that. Then, but it's sort of enticing, that title, "Hate for Sale." Maybe it's low-hanging fruit for our times right now.
Well, I don't know why everyone's saying that we're living through dark times because, I've just got from San Francisco. I'm in Philadelphia. I've had a great experience here. I think we're in much better shape than we've been in for years. I'm not talking about any administrations. I'm talking about where we are, just socially. Gays can get married. I mean, it's no longer, if I was gay, you would only associate me with being a gay singer, a lesbian singer over the last 30 years. But in the last 3 years, if someone is gay, no one even mentions it anymore. It's a huge, huge stride forward for the whole gay community. Like, everyone can relax now because really it's not an issue anymore. It's accepted, it's normal, and everyone's cool with it, and nobody's labeled by it anymore. I mean, I know this is early days for that, but that's what I've seen. You can open a fashion magazine and see girls sitting holding hands in the front row, and no one says lesbian couple. They just say, oh, they're going out with each other. We've had a black president. I mean, huge stride forward. In California, pot's legal. I knew guys that went down for, dealing pot and being arrested for pot. We all did. Yeah. I mean, we weren't all arrested for it, but we all smoked it, and it was always illegal. So, I mean, there's been really significant positive. I mean, I walked around Philadelphia yesterday, and there was a lot of great little organic cafes and things. I was in the airport 2 days ago, and I could get something to eat. I haven't been able to get anything to eat in an airport for 30 years. So I think we're in really good shape. I don't know why everyone says it's dark. It's not dark, it's light.
Well, I know for me, it's easy to get caught up in the sensationalistic headlines that get out there. Although I appreciate this because, David Byrne has been talking about something similar. He does his weekly reason to be optimistic or whatever he calls it. But, it would beg to question then, does that title come from anywhere else specifically then?
Hate for Sale, it sounds kind of like a Damned song. It's, a rocker. And what is it? Hate for Sale. He's got a curly tongue and a curly tail. It's just talking about, in general, this kind of mean-spirited commercialism, I suppose.
Well, and the fact that, it's potentially a double album, for fans, that's seriously exciting.
Yeah, well, that depends if we get enough time to. I mean, James and I started demos, but when we're offered tours, we always down tools and want to go on tour because we love going on tour. So, but once we get that together, I want to record it. I mean, we only need a couple of weeks to record something, and we will record it with this band, which I haven't done in the last 2 albums because people have been busy doing other things. But this if I can nail them down for 2 weeks, we can record it with the band you're going to see.
And now, do you know, because there was one record now that was just under your own name with Chrissie Hynde. Do you think that this is a Pretenders record or a solo record? Have you thought that far ahead?
The Chrissie Hynde thing was just, I was so tired of explaining that I work with the band, and everyone said, yeah, but it's just you. And I was like, well, no, it's not. And then I thought, okay, call it what you want. But I always work with the band. Now I'm having to explain it the other way around. Certainly the Valve Bone Woe album, which is coming out, the Jazz Dub album, that's not a Pretenders thing, although James Wilburn does play on it, my guitar player. Mm-hmm. So, nobody in any band has ever stayed together for 40 years. They fall out with each other in a way because my original band, 2 members died after we made our second album. I've kind of kept the music alive in the spirit of the band and kept the sound. But, it doesn't happen to everyone, thankfully. But most bands do split. They go off and do other things. And, I'm no different. But I only work in the context of a band.
Well, I was listening back to one of those recent records, Break Up the Concrete, because it is the 10th anniversary year. Looking at that. And I saw you mention that you might be doing a re-release. I didn't know if that was just because it was out of issue or you were thinking about expanding it or what. But it's a good record.
I just never saw it for a while. I think maybe it was out of, I don't know. I think, is it out of?
Oh, I think it's still
Print
available.
Or something, or whatever they call it. That they deleted it. I don't know. But I love that album because that was recorded with James Wilburn and Nick Wilkinson. Martin Chambers wasn't on that just because we did it in 11 days and we pulled it together very quickly. And Jim Keltner, who's, as everyone knows, is one of the great drummers of all time. He played on it, and that allowed us to do it very quickly because he's a genius. And that's the way we'll record this next album, with the band in the studio. It's what we call live recording. I mean, it's not live like a live gig, but, you do 3 takes of the song, take the best one, and then there you go, on to the next one.
Well, I can give you the compliments on that record, too. I mean, especially that 1-2 punch right at the beginning of Boots of Chinese Plastic and The Nothing Maker. 2 of the strongest songs, to kick off a record. I do love those. So.
We'll bring them back. We'll bring them back for next year.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. That really would. In the meantime, we also have a mutual a friend, you more so for you, more of an acquaintance for me and Richard Swift, and I was really happy to see you out there kind of pushing to help him out too. So.
Yeah. Do you know Richard?
I've met him. We have a lot of mutual friends, and I've been such admirer of his. So, I'm the one that anytime I have been around him, saying like, "Hey, where's that solo record? Where's that next solo record?" Because I love his music so much.
Yeah, Swift was working on a solo record, and he sent me some tracks, and they're just fantastic. One of the most talented and loveliest guys I've ever met, and a real right-hand man to Dan Auerbach, who was his best friend. And in fact, when we were in the studio doing the Alone album, Richard took a couple of, we call him Swift, took a couple pictures on his phone, and I said, you're going to do all the photography for this. And then I saw him doing some drawings. I said, and you're doing all the artwork. So all of our, he's just all around super talented, and he's not very well, and I'm not really sure that he's going to get through this. So I would love to think that everyone could at least put in a nice thought for Richard and wish him well now.
That's I really hope so too. It's I didn't know the state of it. It's really heartbreaking. It really, really is. Such an amazing.
Well, he's 41 years old, and he's got 3 teenage daughters, and they're all lovely. He's a lovely guy. I never saw him in any way as a negative or a dark person, but he's, a life of excess really caught up with him fast. So let's all the best to Swift and hope he gets through this.
Yeah, same here. I don't want to end it right there on that kind of dark note anyway, but
it's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, you brought up Dan and that record too. The Alone record was so good. I know he's working tons now in his studio. Do you foresee you doing anything down there on his side of things? Have you guys talked about that?
I would work with Dan in a heartbeat at any time. I just love him. I love him as a guy. I love his musical sensibility. He's a great guitar player, which is what attracted me to him in the first place, of course. And, he's just fun. He never gets rattled. He's upset at the moment, obviously, because of our friend. But he's I knew his parents from Akron, Ohio before I left Akron before he was even born. But when I'm with Dan, I always feel like he's older than me. he's just got something that's very authoritative, and I'd do anything with Dan at any time.
I heard his dad's actually got a record coming out. You mentioned his parents there. Chuck.
Oh, really?
Chuck Auerbach. Yeah, Dan's going to be releasing a Chuck record. So
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Dan works with, he got Dwayne Eddy on my record.
Oh, right. Which awesome. It's just having that crew down there. Yeah.
Although I would warn anyone that listens to the Alone album, although it's great and Swift is all over it and Dan's playing guitar on it, it's a blast. But my voice isn't very good. Just a warning. Because I had bronchitis, I could hardly talk. And I said to Danny when I got in, I said, how am I going to sing? I can't even talk. And he goes, don't worry about it. We'll do it in the last 3 days. It'll make it sound cohesive. So, if you hear me choking on some of those songs, you'll know why.
It never even occurred to me. I've heard that record dozens of times. I never once thought, oh, but her voice. Just didn't occur.
Yeah, well, I wasn't in very good. I wasn't in fine voice. I'm hoping I'll be in a better voice when I get to Louisville.
We're looking forward to it. Again, July 3rd at the Louisville Palace. We share a wall with it, so it's going to be an easy trek for me. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk today. This has really been an honor for me, and I cannot wait to catch the show.
Nice. We can't wait ourselves, so thank you, and we look forward to it.
All right. Take care, Chrissie.
Cheers.
All right, bye. Thanks so much to Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders for giving me that call there today. I cannot wait to hear all the music that she has in store for us. Hey, if you're at Consequence of Sound's YouTube page, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to keep up with your favorite artists and interviews. Or for you podcast fans, iTunes, Podchaser, or wherever you're getting this from, please do leave us a rating and a review. That'd be really, really awesome of you. Then you can head over to WFPK.org. That's where I do a show every Monday through Thursday from noon to 3 Eastern. You'll also find some bonus episodes of this interview series over there as well. I'm Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.